So I apologize for that, but I'm not really sure why I'm having video issues. I
That's all
got
right,
that
Dan.
line through there.
Don't worry, it's all good. We're live now on YouTube and Twitch, just to say, by the way. So I'm not going to hit record on the audio pod quite yet. Hey everybody, in the live chat. Hope you're good. We're just getting set up. Dan is having some issues with his video. I don't know whether we're going to fix that or whether we just crack on with the show. Dan, what do you think?
Hey, let's just go ahead and go forward here. I apologize again. I'm not really sure what the issue is. I was all set up because I'm doing my mock draft here in a few hours. So I'm not really sure what the issue is. But yeah, let's just go forward. I guess you can't see my beautiful face after all. So,
That's a shame.
but hopefully you guys can hear me.
Oh yeah, very well, loud and clear. In terms of format, there's not a lot of Lions news, but I can go through that very briefly. We'll talk about our show. Chris, I'll introduce you. And then, Ant, would you introduce Dan? Because obviously you know Dan much better than I do. So, is that cool?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. And I can only apologise for the title of the show. If you want someone to blame, it's not me this time. Thanks, Ash, for taking the hit on this one.
You're welcome. I always take the
Jesus
L.
fucking Christ. All right, everyone ready? Here we go.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Royal Alliance UK podcast, episode 336. All bets are goth. My name's Matthew Turner alongside Anthony Fitzpatrick and Ashley Soden. How you doing, boys?
Doing good, doing good. Excited for the festivities tomorrow. I know usually the most wonderful time of the year is December with Christmas. For me and for a lot of sickos, this is the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah, I'm going to be glad when this thing's done now, almost, just if anything, so I don't have to hear JMO's name for a few months and, you know, whatever's going on with him today and what people think's going to happen. So I'm looking forward to him being a part of this organization long term, and we don't have to argue about it no more. And we can have our new players and we can all go enjoy ourselves a bit.
What he should really do is he should now follow the lines for the first time, and then that would just really throw a spanner in the works. Now no one knows what to think. But anyway, more on that maybe later. I don't know. We are doing our draft bets and hot takes show, as it's our tradition over the last few years. The day before the draft, we have a look at what the betting markets are doing, and of course they're moving very quickly right now. So we're going to pose a number of questions, and I think what we're going to do is maybe speculate what the over-under should be or what we think the answer is going to be. Then we're going to have a look at the odds of that sort of thing, and that might dictate whether you guys think it's a good bet or not, and then we'll bring some hot takes to the building as well. We've got two guests to introduce. So first, a returning guest of the Pride of Detroit POD cast. It's Chris Perfett. Chris, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I am nervous about this invitation that seems to come every year. Because I just never know what's in stock for me. But don't worry, I've come prepared. They may have shut off my water main for today to fix something, but the Mai Tai is poured. It may be gray in California, but I'm still thinking tiki because that's all I can think when we get close to the draft. It's almost here, man. I'm terrified about it.
I love the fact that it's 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, Mai Tai's in hand. The adage, it's always 5 o'clock somewhere, works because it's literally 7:30 in the evening here. So it's all
I
good.
can pour myself in a cab, be back to work before 2.
We now have to pay royalties, but never mind. Anyway, we also have another guest, and I'm going to hand over Ant to introduce him.
Yes, this evening we have a little bit of Kansas City representation with us of our good friend Dan Talks Football. I've sparred with Dan many a times on Luke G's channels and streams. He's up for a good bet, and of course, you know, a lot of Super Bowls in recent years. Dan, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate having you on again, being able to chat with you. Life has been not bad recently for you guys.
Life's been really good. The Super Bowl loss was difficult, but hopefully we'll get back there next year, and hopefully we don't have to play the Lions. I'm willing here, but if we do, we'll have to come back on and talk, you know, for Super Bowl. But I'm really excited. Love the draft, so I'm excited to talk to you guys. You guys can see me now. I hope.
Oh, we can see you now.
Good. It took me a while to get it fixed, so. Yeah, I appreciate the patience with you guys. I'm excited about talking draft. Favorite time of the year. I'll take this over Christmas any day.
Absolutely. I'm just going to talk to you guys about the stuff you
There's
have coming
football
up.
on Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'll take the draft over Christmas, but when the Chiefs play on Christmas, it's a little different. You know, that's been a lot of fun here. You have to wait till the schedule comes out, see if we play again on Christmas or not. But we'll see what happens.
Chris, talk about what you guys have coming up for the draft on POD.
Yeah, so well, me and my life, I'm now juggling several jobs here, but yes, so Pride to Detroit, we will be live on twitch.tv/Pride to Detroit and youtube.com/@Pride to Detroit for the first 2 nights of the draft. There's probably not going to be a day 3 this year. Not that I usually had a day 3, just because I usually collapse from exhaustion. But I know that's a very busy night for Detroit sports fans because I believe Pistons are playing game 3, first game in the Palace against the Knicks. I believe the Tigers are playing that night. They're always playing. I never miss a game. But we will have the draft up there, and I will try to maintain everything through all of that, and then probably spend the weekend with Fox Sports Radio talking about some of the things that happened and putting out my soccer hit. And I believe we said that was like, 9:30 a.m. your time. So maybe we'll christen Liverpool. Who knows? But no, Pride to Detroit itself, we will be live. I am excited to have it back. I think last time we had talked, the plug had been pulled and someone put the plug back in. So I'm just happy to be on the air.
It is funny to think back to 12 months ago with you guys building up to your draft show, and then was it 2 weeks before the draft in Detroit?
I don't. You know what? I'm gonna let's just forget about it.
Yeah, let's move swiftly on.
Let's forget about that.
Yeah, right. And Dan, you have a mock draft airing in a little over 3 hours time, I think.
About three and a half hours. I'll have my final mock draft. I'll give you a few tidbits here on your show, but I don't want to reveal the whole thing. But yeah, I got my mock draft, my final mock draft. It's without trades, and I do think there's going to be multiple trades in round 1, and then I think there's going to be a lot of trades in round 2. You know, before we all went live, we were talking, and every NFL team big board is going to be, I think, vastly different between picks 10 and 40. I think you're going to see players all over the place, and so I think we're going to see several trades round 1, but I'm not going to do any trades. So it's going to be a fun draft. It's going to be a good draft, and I expect some trades round 1 and a lot of trades day 2.
All right, and just to talk about our draft content, we obviously start tomorrow as well. We've got a little preview show coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern, and then live through day 1, 2, and 3 with catch-up shows in between, and then reviewing it all on Sunday morning as well. So it's 26 hours of streaming after today this week, which is, let's say I'm going to sleep Sunday. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Anyway, I'll skip the normal guff that we normally go through, but there's a little bit of Lions news just to touch on. Lions have announced they're re-signing offensive lineman Michael Neese, who was an exclusive rights free agent. Taken a while for that to be announced, but it must have been the first day he was in the building, so just signed on the dotted line. And it was announced in the last few hours that the Lions are going to be kicking the preseason off against the Chargers at Canton on July 31. So, I mean, guys, it's the first time in 34 years that the Lions have opened preseason up with the Hall of Fame game. I mean, it's a little nod to us, I guess. I mean, it doesn't mean anything really, does it? But that's kind of cool.
I think it's very fascinating that it is the Chargers for it. That definitely seems like, hey, we want all of the people from Michigan to come down to Canton and just really have. But that's kind of the thing. I think if anything, the NFL has figured out over the last 2 years of Detroit Lions football is that this is a very marketable fan base who will travel very well, show up in a lot of different places. So yeah, that makes it like you look at the teams that usually get the Hall of Fame game, and it's either like you've won something tremendous, or it is one of these fan bases that you know will be able to show up in Canton for the festivities, and that would happen to be the Detroit Lions. I can't say as much about the Chargers, mostly because it is a team in limbo, but Jim Harbaugh, I believe, is the draw. And that sounds like absolutely, hey, let's get down the maize and blue for all of that. And one more tie to see Jim. The Chargers are I think it's also a great matchup as far as those are two teams that I think they would hope have two very similar coaches who are going to play hard. Not saying they'll play their players in preseason. We've seen, I think, this last preseason, Dan Campbell sitting out quite a few guys, but it's going to still be something that is very eminently marketable for for the NFL, for NBC, and for the Hall of Fame. So I'm excited. I'm excited. And like, again, this is another one of those things where you can keep giving to the Lions. Like, yeah, you're among one of the big boys now.
I can't wait to watch the battle of the two explosive QBs, Hendon Hooker versus Trey Lance. It's going to be definitely worth staying up for. It's totally not going to be exactly like the last time the Chargers played in the Hall of Fame game when it was 0-0 against the Packers.
I mean, it should be
These
fun.
are always tough watches, aren't they?
Yeah, it'll be good to get the reps though in July. I think Dan will like doing this, especially for all the fringe roster guys who are trying to sort of prove a point. And for Hendon, like I think Hendon should play the entire game. He needs reps,
Well,
it
I'll
could
be excited to
useful
watch
there.
Hendon Hooker. This was one of my draft crushes coming out of Tennessee. I actually thought he would go in round 1. I guess I was way off there, but probably shouldn't admit that before we do a draft show. One of my swings and misses. But I mean, I loved Hendon Hooker coming out of college. I know he's got the injury, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but when Joe Milton replaced him, that scoring, the Tennessee scoring went almost in half. I mean, they were scoring 40 points a game. They beat Alabama. They put up 52 against a Bama defense, had like 5 first-round picks on that defense. And then Joe Milton comes over and they're struggling to put 21 up against Kentucky. And matter of fact, he just got traded to Dallas for a 5th-round pick. So I'm actually really excited. I'll be excited to watch Hendon Hooker, and Trey Lance I'll probably sleep through, but I'm actually curious what you guys think about Hendon Hooker. But I mean, we're talking draft here.
I don't think he's guaranteed to be quarterback 2 by this time we get to the Hall of Fame game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a guaranteed at all.
No, it shouldn't be. I mean, he hasn't done anything, but he's an exciting prospect, and there's potential there. So it'll be a fun thing to watch. Trey Lance is not guaranteed to be the two quarterback for the Chargers, and all 12 of the Charger fans that are going to be in attendance can watch that. So,
Oh man,
I don't think he's going to be quarterback 2 at all.
No,
At
I
this
don't think
rate,
he is
at the
either.
fact that I mean, we can keep going back to the question of why did they need to bring in Teddy Bridgewater, which remains the biggest thing. But I don't think Kyle Allen's beating him. But I've been on record from Pride Detroit. But I'm trying to hold myself back a little bit on the takes for Matt's sake about I'm not counting out a day 3 quarterback. I'm really not. I know I make Jeremy mad every time I mention this, but I am not. Nothing is set in stone for Hendon Hooker at this point.
I literally start giggling whenever you bring it up because I know what the reaction is going to be. It's like you're trolling him. It's fantastic. I mean, Jeremy's kind of easy to do that.
Trolling
too as well.
always has a good trolling. Always has a sliver of truth embedded into it, because you can't really troll effectively unless there's at least part of your brain that believes it dearly.
Yeah, I could subscribe to that. All right, let's get on with some bets, shall we? And the first one I have up, and this is a conversation, so I'll bring up one, and then once we've kind of exhausted that, feel free to bring up your own, and I'll go through my list, and you can go through yours, and then we'll get some hot takes at the end. And the first one I want to get to is someone who has moved in the betting substantially today, and there has been a lot of bad press about him this week, and that is quarterback from Colorado, Shedeur Sanders. Draft position, over under is the bet. Where do you think Shedeur is going to go? And then I'll tell you where the over under is.
Ooh, that's a good one. You don't reveal what the bet is for the over under?
Well, I mean, if you come up with an answer that's substantially above or below the number, then I think it says it's a good bet.
Well,
Go on now.
I was going to say, I don't want to reveal exactly where I have him, but I think I'm kind of in the minority here. I think he's going to go later than most people think. I'll put it this way here. I got him going below 20. Where Denver's picking. Obviously, Denver's not going to take a quarterback, but I don't want to reveal that yet. But I think he's going to surprise people, and I think he's going to fall. I think there's a good chance he falls all the way to day 2. I think I really believe that NFL teams aren't that high on him. So I'm curious where the betting position is, where you have, but I think he goes below 20.
So I'm going to stick to sort of what I did one mock. I think it's going to be round 16. You've got three teams there, 15, 16, 17, who have minimal draft picks. Who I think if he falls past New Orleans and he starts getting towards that second half, that's when teams are going to start looking upwards. Like your Steelers are there. Maybe someone's going to make a big jump out the 30s. I think that's where the market's potentially going to start from. And it's not a strong market to trade this year. So, what you've got to trade up to get is there. So I will put my flag at about 16 right in the middle of those three teams that I think are likely to trade if there's offers there.
I'll say 24. Similar vein to Ant, Minnesota have little to no picks this year after all the trades they did last year, trading up for McCarthy and Dallas Turner. They need to trade back. I could see Cleveland perhaps jumping up around 10 spots to come get him potentially, because I also have Pittsburgh passing on him. The rumors are they really, really love Jalen Milroe at QB now. So they ain't going to take him if he's there at 21. And the Saints, for once, should do the right thing and just try and blow it up. Take a defensive player or an offensive lineman, then wait till next year and potentially get a better QB. Cough, cough, Archie Manning. But they probably won't. But still, 24, Minnesota.
This is Shadir Sanders we're talking about, right?
Chris looks like he's gone into the Twilight Zone.
I think, look, I know I've got a rum in front of you. I think you're all lost in the sauce here. I am not sure where this is coming. First off, I guess I'm maybe a little bit higher on Shadur in the sense that I think his play is incredibly conducive to the NFL. Unlike Cam Ward, I think what the Tennessee Titans are doing is a genuine mistake. I understand the headaches that come with Shadur Sanders and his father potentially, and everything they've kind of done to gum up this draft process. But we're talking about a prototypical pocket passer here. Does he hold on to the ball a little bit? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But like, he makes plays happen, and it's everything you'd want in a quarterback like that. And if we've learned anything about the NFL, it doesn't matter how good or bad a quarterback class is. Everyone is starved. Everyone is terrified about going without a quarterback these days. I don't even think the fact that the Giants loading up their room with a bunch of fringe veterans who can barely play anymore. I'm sorry. No, Jameis Winston cannot play football. Like, that does not take the Giants off the board for Shadur Sanders either. Like, anywhere between 3 and 11. And the reason why I say 11 is it's hard for me to see, if he's still there at 11, a team like the 49ers passing up on him and just pushing Brock Purdy out the door. Like, Brock Purdy has not done anything to really set the world on fire to dictate the contract that Brock Purdy would be getting. You take the value you got out of Mr. Irrelevant and say thank you. The Raiders do not have a quarterback. I know Ashton Genty is a very sexy pick for them, but that makes no sense when they have no goddamn quarterback to speak of whatsoever. The Saints are dumb. The Saints are really dumb, and they need something to market there. I don't think they should probably take a quarterback, but like, we cannot think of teams logically here. There's a lot of teams that are so needy, so desperate for this position. It's really hard for me to see him anything but first half of the first round. Like, we just know what teams want, what they value, and it's it is one thing where I'm like, I'm not taking him completely falling off the board, but I do think, like, there's going to be a team that's not going to sit still for Shadur Sanders, and he is quarterback 2 in this draft, if only by virtue of the fact that I believe I looked up the odds, and I believe Cam Ward is something like minus 20,000 to be the number 1 overall pick, which was the odds Caleb Williams had last year for the Chicago Bears.
I mean, Cam Ward has the brain rot where he's saying that, Treylon Burke is a top 4 quarterback in the NFL. So, he's definitely going to the Titans. Like, he has to be going to the Titans.
But I do not buy into a lot of the noise around Shadur Sanders, I guess, is the thing. And I also understand how many teams are going to be willing to take this risk.
So Shadur is about head over heart for me, because my heart is going with my grade on him, which is still quarterback 2 in this draft, but I graded him as a low second round pick. That's where, in terms of like when you rank prospects, that's where I thought he should go. But then you get into the fact that it's a limited quarterback class, and he's got traits you like. He's a perfect fit for San Francisco as well. So I mean, I think it's really interesting you invoked that, because I think he could operate that offense really, really well. But then in our mock draft that we did on Monday this week, I had him going to the Saints at 2. Because that's the heart bit, right? My heart tells me that Shadir's going to go early. However, I looked at the odds this afternoon. Shadir Sanders over-under is 21.5. Which I think is staggering, because everyone was talking about him as a kind of top 10 pick for like the last couple of months, probably. And now suddenly he's tanked. So I thought it was really interesting. So, Chris is high. The rest of the guys are kind of on the money-ish with where to go. Ant slightly lower. Dan and Ash slightly higher. And I have no idea where I am anymore. So sorry.
I will say, if you could get access to FanDuel at all, they do have team to draft player odds, and I do know for San Francisco it is plus 11,000. They're not high on it. I think the clubhouse leader on that is plus 175 for the Pittsburgh Steelers to be the team to draft Shadir Sanders. The Giants are plus 350, and then it starts to devolve from there. The Saints are plus 440. It really starts to devolve from there, but I mean, yeah.
So
I mean, it's interesting. If he does get down that far, is there any of the playoff teams who might not necessarily need a quarterback who go, hang on, you know what? This actually represents really good value for money. Like, even if you go back as far as the Eagles, Kansas, I doubt Kansas would, but Washington, would someone just go up for value alone for him? Would a playoff team do it? I don't know which one. I look at that group and I'm like, maybe, I don't know. Someone would surprise you. It would be great value.
I can't think of anyone that I would really like to take him at that range. That's the problem, and that's the problem I find with a lot of players. Like, we could get into Colson Loveland later, but I think he has a problem in that if he doesn't go in the top, 12 to 15 picks, it's really hard to find a landing spot for him. Like, he can slip a long way if he doesn't go early. So
Chris has played his hand here with the extra quarterback. If he's there at 28, Chris...
Are you? I'm not that crazy. No. I was thinking Kyle McCord. For the extra funny.
Yeah.
I think though what you guys are bringing up is kind of what I was talking about while we were setting up here, is that I don't think there's a lot of daylight between a lot of these draft picks as far as how teams value them right now. I think you have a consensus on maybe I would say 5 or 6 guys in the consensus top 10. That's Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. It starts to get a little fuzzy though. I think Will Campbell's probably in there. I think Armand Membo is probably in there. Jalen Walker is where we start to really lose the plot a little bit. And Taro McMillan, this is there's only a few guys I can lock in that I know are going to go top 10. I'm not saying it's a bad draft class by any means. It's deep at a few of these positions, but I think the reason why you're seeing so many mocks across the board is that there's not a lot of guys who have really stood out, and those guys who do stand out come with some really big asterisks. I love Shamar Stewart. and Nick Scorton, for that matter. I love both of the edges from A&M this year, but it's really hard to get around the point everyone keeps bringing up about 4.5 sacks in 3 years. And you can keep talking about Daniil Hunter all you want, but they'll keep bringing it up. 4.5 sacks in 3 years. For God's sakes, I was looking at a CBS mock, and they have Darius Alexander going pick 31. I have Darius Alexander as an early day 3, late day 2 guy. It's all over the board. Nobody knows what's what. Who knows what's going to happen with some of these guard prospects too. Is Gray Zabel is suddenly center number 1 because he took snaps at the center position at the Senior Bowl, even though he didn't do any of that in college at any point in his career. This is the kind of fog of war we're really dealing with in this draft, where nobody's quite sure what to make of a lot of guys. I'm very high up on Tyler Booker, but his RAS scores were not good. It's a lot to figure out, especially when I look at just try to make a composite between Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, some of the CBS mock draft guys. You will find so much variance. It is crazy this year. And I think that just means that we're just going to have to accept there's a huge pool of guys. Teams are going to have their own internal boards, and the mocks right now are just not going to forecast a lot about what's happening here.
Yeah, me and Ash have been making the graphics and player bios for the players who could potentially go in round 1, and I think we've done 50, 55?
41, I think.
Oh, is that only 41? Really?
Yeah.
No, surely not.
You got to pump those numbers up.
We've done 8 corners.
True.
We've done 8 corners. I think we've done substantially more than that. But anyway, I don't know whether Dan or Chris, you have a bet that you want to bring to the table.
Well, as far as a bet, I don't have any specific bets on the draft, and the reason why is Chris just nailed it. You got so many teams are looking at so many different things. It's funny. I have a kind of a guy I'm bringing on, Keaton Talk Sports. He did his mock draft, and I did mine. And I don't reveal where, but I got a player that I got a big draft crush on, James Pierce. And if you looked at mock drafts before the season started, he was like a #1 player, goes to the combine, runs a 4.47 as a defensive end. And then most mock drafts have him going to Baltimore or Kansas City or at the very bottom of round 1. And I'm like, okay, productive in the SEC, runs a 4.47. I mean, what else do you want? But people are all over the board on this guy. I personally think he's a top 15 player. Most people think he might fall in round 2 or something like that. Because of that, I mean, this draft is just really hard. I mean, I honestly didn't think Cam Ward should have gone round 1. Chris also nailed that. I think that's going to be a big mistake. We're going to be seeing him as a quarterback for the Raiders in 4 or 5 years from now, or some other team, because it's not going to work in Tennessee. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole. So I'll toot my horn a little bit. I said this all offseason. Tennessee's probably going to have the #1 pick in the draft because everything they look like is just. I'll watch my language here for you guys.
Oh no, please swear as much as you like.
That is everything that they were doing. Just completely asinine. It was just idiotic. Everything that they were doing. You get Will Levis, a big time, big armed quarterback, and you would have put him in a rhythm offense, which made no sense at all. You have a power type running back. But hey, you got Derrick Henry. Well, let's send him to Baltimore and bring on the 200-pound running back. He was successful. I mean, if you do fantasy football somewhat, but how many games they win? They won 2. Yeah, they brought in all these defensive players. Didn't make any sense for the system they were running. T'Vondre Sweat got a DUI like 2 days before the draft. They still pick him at 36. I mean, it just stupid after stupid after stupid. Then you draft a quarterback. He's going to run that quick rhythm passing offense. That's not really his strength. So it's going to be a failure there. Chris nailed it. If you're going to draft a quarterback and you're Tennessee Titans, you should have took Shadir Sanders because he would fit in that offense perfectly, and they're not going to. So
God smote the Titans when they decided to bust out the Love Ya Blue Houston Oilers jerseys. Like, that is a blasphemy.
Yeah.
Especially against the Houston Texans. Like,
those are sweet jerseys too.
They are, and they belong in Houston. Sweet. They belong in Houston.
They should. They do. They belong in Houston, not Tennessee. Yeah. That's another team. We're going to be talking about them again this time next year, picking in the top 5 and going, well, wouldn't Arch Manning be better? Yeah, he would be. But they're
the new Browns. I like this.
Yeah, they are.
I do have one bet, and that's going to involve a particular running back who I think it would be a terrible idea for this, but I believe it's really, from talking with people who I know, and I don't know, maybe it's hard for me to not look at plus 330. Again, this is a team to draft player prop. Chicago Bears are right now plus 330 to draft Ashton Genty. And I think with the money they've spent on their offensive line and how they want to build around Caleb Williams, I know there's a risk in this, in that I think the Raiders are very high on it. A lot of people around me say that would be a mistake for the Raiders to take Genty, considering they have nothing else on that offense really to speak of. But I think if Genty is past, I'm absolutely going on the plus 330 value on this. I think Genty to the Bears makes a lot of sense in the fact that they would really like to cement a weapon like Genty in with the why am I blanking on his name already? Why am I blanking on our former
Caleb
offensive
Williams?
Benjamin Johnson.
No, Ben Johnson, thank you. God,
Yeah.
the rum's really hitting me for the last few days. Ben Johnson, who like his offense, given the power running, giving everything they'd like, I don't think that answer is DeAndre Swift going into the season as your RB1. Genty feels almost ordained at this point. I have questions about what he'll do in the NFL, considering how much wear is on those treads right now. But I've talked with a lot of Bears people, and they are very, very high on the idea that Genty at 11 makes tremendous amounts of sense.
He's not going to be there.
See,
He's not going to be there.
they're going to trade up for him.
That's what I was about to say.
The smoke's going up from Jacksonville. You're hearing all this stuff going. They think that Gente is the last part of their offense that they need, and now Jacksonville is sending up smoke screens there. The Raiders obviously want him, which would be stupid because they need a right tackle first, and Membu's right there for them. I think teams are trying to pressure someone into going to get him, and as I mentioned, Rand Pauls is on a massively hot seat right now. He's got to win. He doesn't want to. He can't sit there for Amari and Hampton if he doesn't want him. You've got to go and get Jonty, and you've got to. I think teams are trying to call their bluff, and I think he's desperate enough to do it. You've got 39 and 41. You can still trade back if you want to get some picks back. I think Jonty's going to end up going top 5 because someone's gonna buy on this smoke Jacksonville is sending up.
Mm-hmm. To build off that, I have heard rumors in the past few hours with some of the stuff all the people I follow on Twitter and people on WhatsApp. There are conversations between Chicago and New York for a trade up from 10 to 3.
Wow.
Because the Pats, there's been rumors to the Pats as well. Rumors are the Pats like him because Vrabel wants his new Derrick Henry. Not that they're the similar style of running back, but still, it's those little things you put together. What does he really want? Does he want his defense? Does he want his offensive line? Does he want Derrick Henry again? Who knows? But again, that's the smoke going up. I think Chicago will bite on it. I think he's silly enough to do that.
So, in terms of odds, team to draft Genty, Bears are third right now. Mm-hmm. So, the favourites are Jacksonville at -120, which is insane. So, the smoke they're throwing up that Ant's talking about is really hitting, and the betting market has responded to it. And the Raiders are second at +165.
What are the Bears?
The Bears are, as Chris
third.
said, in the sort of +400 mark.
+350. I'd take that.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Chris,
Like
I'm looking there.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking. I'm looking at the value. Like Jacksonville at minus odds. That don't impress me much. But you're telling me I'm gonna get 4-1 on the Bears? Absolutely, I'll put down a peanut.
Yeah, Chris is spot on there. To me, Ashton Gentry on a team that has Trevor Etienne and Tank Bigsby makes zero sense. You had one of the worst defense, if not the worst defense in the NFL. And what do they need? They need a defensive tackle. I mean, this is let's just kind of. I mean, I don't get that number at all. -120. I'm floored by that. Chris, you're getting excellent value there. It would you say +330? That's fantastic value. Because
+330 at FanDuel. I know the odds are going to be all over the place with these futures, but yeah.
Because what I like about the bet, if Gentry somehow falls to the Bears, they're 100% going to get them, and they could trade up. They really could. Jacksonville, that's a smoke screen. I've heard rumors about Carolina wanting to get out of 8, but we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, there is going to be some trades in round 1, and I mean, he makes a lot of sense. That's excellent value.
Yeah, Carolina are the team that absolutely should trade down, that no one's really talking about too much. Like Danny mentioned that there's smoke about it now, but up until now, it's always been they're on Jalen Walker at 8. That's who they want, and it's like, okay, but the team is bad enough, and like Jalen Walker's the sort of prospect where it might not work and it's a massive risk. Why not trade down to get more capital? He's not a blue chip guy. Like, just accept that you're outside the blue chip.
I can't prove this, but I think they're the team that released that Derek Carr's AC joint's bad and he's going to be out for the 2025 season. Because who picks right after Carolina is the Saints. And I think Carolina's the team that released that information, said, hey, look, Derek Carr, he's going to be out for the whole year. Come on, trade.
I'm sure Carolina would love to trade. I think the problem is I think a lot of teams are also trying to trade down. Not just around that area, but like the entire draft. Everyone wants the value. I'm just not sure who's buying this year. Like, again, like I don't It's going to be one hell of a game of chicken on Thursday night. I'll just say that.
There is. I'm predicting there's going to be 4 day 1 trades, and I don't know who, but I think there's going to be about 4. And you'll have to see who wants to trade up, trade down, because teams are going to be all over the place. And then if Shadir Sanders does fall, where's the spot? I've heard Dallas wants to trade down. Miami should trade down. They got holes everywhere. Atlanta has 5 draft picks. Minnesota has 4 draft picks. Pittsburgh, they don't have a 2nd-round pick. You can call that DK Metcalf if you want. So, I mean, these are all teams that probably want to trade down. So it's going to be a fun draft.
I'm going to come back to quarterbacks for the next one and ask you about quarterbacks drafted in round 1. So we've had a couple of questions in the chat. Perry Ball has asked at the panel, do you think Jackson Dart goes to the Saints? Could the Jets take Dart? Reports are that Jets are high on tight end. And Brent DeWitt has asked, what about Tyler Shook? And of course, they might be the two, along with Milrow, who of course we've heard about that someone really, really likes already. So there's 5 quarterbacks who have been mentioned at least somewhat in round 1 area, even if Shook might be a day 3 prospect for some. And Dart might also be a day 3 prospect for some. I will tell you right now that the over-under is 2.5. But which do you think is the favoured side?
So I would hit the under on that straight away. I believe someone said, and I can't remember, it was about a week or so ago, that there will be more quarterbacks taken like in the first hour and a half of day 2 than there will be in round 1. And I completely buy into that. I don't think teams are going to come up for these guys. I think the fight is going to be at the start of day 2. Like you'll see trade after trade after trade there. I believe there's only 2 going. I don't believe Jackson Dart should go there. I don't think the Steelers would do that. And I don't think there's any teams, sort of the playoff-based teams, that would kind of do it either. So I think it's going to be 2. I think that's under. I think all your quarterback action is going to be right at the top of day 2.
I think there's a pretty big hole after Shadir Sanders when it comes to it. I know some people tried to talk up Jackson Dart, but I would say this, like, if there was enough of the smoke around Jackson Dart, we'd probably have heard it by now, and there hasn't been. I think I know Dane Brugler listed 4 quarterbacks in his top 50. The problem is 2 of those are 49 and 50. So I do not buy into. I also would take the under, and I would also believe the under is probably favored. I see that number being 2. And again, there's even some consternation, as we talked about disagreement about whether Shadir Sanders will even be a day 1 pick. I still believe he will be, but I mean, hey, that makes 2. I don't think Jackson Dart's going. I don't think these guys are going to be up there. There's too much trenches positions, which always retain a lot of high-end value. There's a lot of, I would say, probably 6 edge players deep who would probably be top 30 picks in this draft. You've got your, usual receivers people have talked up between McMillan and Golden and Luther Burden, who I've seen start to sneak into the first round as well. Like, I think there's enough, the value on quarterback as a deep class this year is way down, which means that other positions will likewise move up and push the quarterback, the rest of the quarterbacks outside of the top 2 down.
All right. I've put a poll in the YouTube chat, so do get a vote in there for over 2 or 2 and under.
Which one was favorite? Which one's the favorite of that betting you've got?
Dan or Ash, you want to weigh in on where you think it's going to be?
That's a great bet, and I'll be honest with you. If I was going to place, I think it's going to be 3. I think there's going to be 3 day 1 quarterbacks that are going to go, and Chris kind of nailed it perfectly. Is that there's going to be some quarterback needy team that's going to get back into round 1, and I think there's going to be 3. I really do. I would personally. If I'm grading these guys, I think Ward's a mid first round guy personally. And if I was desperate for a quarterback, like I'm gonna say Cleveland, I would wait till next year and go that route. But I think end of the day, there's going to be a team, probably the Giants, that are going to trade back into round 1. and get the third quarterback, second or third quarterback. That's what I see. But value wise, I think Cam Ward's the only legit first round quarterback. Everybody else I got question marks about. But at the end of the day, who I think over would be the good bet to make.
I'm saying under. I'm going to say Tua go in. It's going to look like Killer Kent 2022, where Kenny Pickett's the only one taken, and then Cleveland trade back up into the first to reunite Shador with his best friend, Travis Hunter.
So the favorite is over 2.5, minus 140. Under 2.5 is plus 110, or 11 to 10 in
I'm
fractions.
fair with that. Yeah,
Take
that's
that
about
under.
that's about even money. I can take that.
Yeah,
I've been hanging around with too many of my Vegas degenerates. Like, I'm just some of the stuff you don't want to be riding to. I mean, not that you can ever in any book anymore put a lot of money on these kind of props or futures. Like, they are, especially from what I've heard about books, like they never like touching the draft in this day and age, just because they're always worried about books have gotten so damn scared. Not scared in a, oh no, we might lose money. Scared in that they have MBAs in charge now who have just completely decided on, limiting the ability for anyone to play a lot of these numbers. So it's any one of these things is a peanut, but even money, sure.
just going to close the poll here. 70-30, they are in favour of over 2. So the over on 2.5 is what the fans think there. Let's move on to another one. Let's do what's going to be fun. Who is going to be the first cornerback to go after Travis Hunter? Because Will Johnson seemed to be a slam dunk for that position for a long, long time. And now suddenly we're seeing mocks for him to go to the Lions at 28, which seems absolutely insane to me. And mixed with that, you've got Jahdae Barron seismically rising. I mean, he is in several very high-profile draft nick top 10s. So my question to you is, which one of those two goes first? I can see it's a lovely question because you really wanted to come at it. Ash, come on, after you, Cole.
Jahdae Barron. As much as I don't agree with it, I know, as you said, some really prominent guys have got him high in their draftings. For me, as I've said a couple of times on this podcast, the past couple of episodes, I think he's going to have to move to nickel or safety. Like, it's not going to, they're trying him at outside corner and it's just not going to work. For me, his best fit is probably as a sort of nickel safety, kind of like Brian Branch, but lesser. But with, I think it's like 2-3 drafts today that come out with us taking Will Johnson. As much as I don't agree with that, he's seemingly fallen because people don't trust the foot injury, don't trust his ability to do man coverage because the system they play at Michigan, a lot of off-zone kind of stuff. So, I think Barron, he's just rise the ball production. That's going to force him above Will Johnson, and Johnson's going to fall to a team that does play that kind of Michigan sort of Martindale kind of scheme that does a lot of off-zone and stuff. And then everyone's going to look stupid because he'll absolutely ball out in one of those systems, but Barron is going to rise above him, unfortunately.
Anyone else want to put the stick there?
I agree with Ash completely. I think Barron, I don't think is as good as some of these people are saying. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, some like 7. I've seen a lot of people call him a top 10 prospect. I didn't see that at all, but
Tyler Barron we're talking about, just to make sure.
Jahdae Barron, the supposed nickel back, or if you're looking at Bucky Brooks of the NFL Network, he calls him a nickel. But I think he'll be a second corner off the board. I don't think he's a top 10 player, but I don't have him ranked as that. But I think he'll be a second corner off the board. The reason why I think he's going to be a second guy is there's no issues with him. Will Johnson would be if you trusted him to stay healthy. And he also had a good performance on his 40. Some people are saying he's going to run into 4.6s. I don't know if that's true or not. Watching him in Michigan didn't look like a 4.6 guy to me, but but there's a lot of question marks about every corner in this draft, except for Barron, who I don't think he's a top 10 player, but I think he'll be a second corner chosen in the draft.
I think like
Are we
I don't know
counting?
if
Are we counting Travis Hunter as a corner, or are we
Yes.
counting him as a wide
Travis
receiver?
Hunter is counted as a
After
corner.
Hunter.
Yeah.
yeah. See,
Just making sure. No. Just making sure, because I think that's a genuine question about how we look at this, about whether Hunter's playing wide receiver or corner.
my slightly hot take here is after Hunter, I think a safety goes before a corner. I think it's going to be that long before a corner comes off the board. And
Emma Worry is one of those guys I'm very high on, to that
Yeah.
point,
I am
out of
too.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
well, Emma Moore's got the traits. Starks has the lineage, like all he's done. I think, either of those two. A safety will go before a corner after Travis Hunter, I think. And like the number of DBs, there might only be 4 in the first round. And depending on what happens with all the edge guys and that, it could be tiny number this year. But I think a safety goes before a corner.
All right, so the betting odds are equal on Barron and Will Johnson being the next guy off the board after
What's the
Travis Hunter.
number?
They
What's the
are
number?
both minus 110.
Okay.
So even money. Maxwell Hairston is plus 3,000 to be the next guy, and he's third in the betting. So yeah, it's just a weird one considering how different they were ranked at the start of this process. Like they were at least a round apart. So yeah, it's been a big shift. Okay. Ant, you just talked about the prospect of a safety going, so let's talk about Malachi Starks, because he was a top 10 prospect coming into this and, maybe didn't have the best season ever, but, he's still someone that everyone highly regards, but he is a safety and they always fall. So what do you think his draft position is going to be when it's all said and done? I'll give you the over-under after.
I mean, what are the usual landing spots? The usual landing spot is Pittsburgh. Like, I've seen a lot of people mocking to Pittsburgh. Who else is safety needy that high?
It's Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and
Yeah.
and Baltimore, the 3 that I've seen the most, and then Philly.
In that case, I'd probably land somewhere between Minnesota and Pittsburgh. I'd say something like, would I say Minnesota? I think 24 would be the floor. I'd say 24 because he could go earlier, but I don't know. It depends on needs. There's that many D-line players around. I think it's going to push the DBs down a bit that people aren't sure about. So
I'm going to go Baltimore 27.
Well, if you're doing a betting number, I bet you the betting number is probably going to be 24.5 or 23.5.
yeah.
Because Minnesota's looking at it. I think Minnesota wants to draft a safety. I was floored. I got a buddy of mine, he's a big Vikings fan, and I was floored when Harrison Smith came back for one more year. I mean, this will probably be a swan song, but so the betting number is probably at 23 or 24.5. And that kind of makes sense. I wouldn't bet on that at all, but that's probably where the number is without having any of my betting sites up.
I'll be honest, just because our coverage for the Lions is kind of so focused on other positions, I am not up on this, DB class as much as I should be. I know I like the tape of Emin Worry, but I'm afraid this is kind of the one area of the draft I am not terribly familiar with at this point. I do think Starks is listed. I know Brugler had him listed below Emin Worry. But yeah, I kind of sign off on a lot of the other talk about some of the teams who are needy. I think I've seen some mocks putting him in Seattle as well, which doesn't really work for me. But yeah.
So Dan nailed the number. 23.5 it is, but the favourite is for him to be over substantially. So under is plus 160 and over is minus 150.
That's a good bet. Under, I mean, that's just my opinion personally, because Emma Worry, I think, is the better prospect out of the two. Just my opinion, and looking at safety needy teams, that's a solid bet. That's my betting advice here if anybody's listening. That's a good bet. Take under on that.
So I've taken the over. I have put my own money on that. I've taken over 23.5, but I got that at almost even money. So that the odds have shifted since then.
What team do you have him going to?
I wouldn't be surprised if he falls out the first round altogether. Um,
Okay.
so
All right. Yeah, I think he goes below that,
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on the same page. So I think the problem that Starks is going to have is that safeties just always fall. No one really values them anywhere near as much as they should. So, is he a better prospect than our own safety from the same college? Not the same college. You know what I mean. Sorry, apologies. Yes, Ash, don't correct me. I know I was wrong. But no, sorry. Brian Branch or Malachi Starks, who's better as a prospect? I think Branch was probably a better prospect, and he went in the middle of round 2. Like,
I
history
remember
shows.
when the Chargers chose Quentin Johnson over Brian Branch. I said somebody's going to get fired over this, and he did. He got fired. He's a defensive coordinator now. I was like, this is a no brainer. You need a safety. This is a great safety. I don't want to play against them, and they chose a receiver instead. And I said at the time, it's like somebody's going to lose their job. This is stupid. And yeah, well, it happened. So and you guys got a fantastic player. Still mad about that pick 6 against my Chiefs on Monday night. That was some bullshit. But by the way, the guy who dropped that pass, he's now started his new career as a rapper. Cardavius Tony. I don't know if you guys even know who that is.
Yeah. Let's just drop let's hope you can drop more hits than he drops passes in that game. It was like 4, wasn't it? All in one game.
Oh God. I'm not a Tony fan. I will not be buying his rap album. Let's just say that. So
Right, let's pivot to something a little bit different, because this is really maybe not about the player himself, but about the whispers about what he might or might not have done in college. Mike Green, where is he going pick position-wise? Because I would stand for him in terms of the production that he might bring, that this guy might be a top 10 pick in terms of quality of the player. I think he should go top 10. But with the whispers of what might or might not have happened, and how much do the teams take that into account, I don't know. But it is like a bad smell, the thing that really hasn't gone away for him. So, Mike Green, where's the over-under on the betting?
I mean, could it also not just be a matter of what he did or didn't do, but also the fact that it's a small school? I don't try to sticker. I don't try to sticker look anymore. I get accused of that every now and then, but like there's a reason why smaller school guys are really hard to evaluate, because Mike Green dominated at Marshall, but he's also playing the teams that are on Marshall's schedule. And that ultimately becomes just like it is with Gray Zabel. Like, I've kind of, if there's one prospect I am not high on that a lot of other people are high on, it's Gray Zabel. Why? Because it seems like there seems to be this odd particular bump. And maybe your British audience can appreciate this, but I feel like if the FCS is Football League One, North Dakota State is Wrexham, in that it gets a tremendous amount of attention and coverage in a way that, say, a South Dakota does not get. Their athletes get pumped up, and like we've seen this in several drafts. Usually, North Dakota State's track record with quarterbacks is not good. It's not good, but they've put other guys into the NFL, but for some reason, we talk up North Dakota State, and I don't want this to make this about North Dakota State. I want this to make about the fact that we are talking about a prospect on Marshall.
Were you just referring to two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback Carson Wentz? I can't believe that you would throw shade.
Yes, I am. Are you talking about Indianapolis Colts quarterback Carson Wentz, who lost the clown out in Jacksonville? Are we talking about that Carson Wentz?
Yeah.
My Indianapolis Colts curse continuing
I will say
I don't know how many years. I feel like it's out of
North Dakota State's offensive line track record is exceptionally good, though.
Wait, did Monch actually do something?
He's not a bad player, but I mean, he went late second, if I remember right.
Yeah,
you go bottom of the second round, and you could cross Munch's name out and put Zabel in there, and you'd get the same exact thing, almost word for word. I mean, what's really the difference between the two guys?
No, and again, this is about Mike Green, so I'll table the Zabel stuff and the lineman from there. But I think It adds a little bit. I've seen a lot of people like I think what makes this tricky, Matt, is that from everything I've seen, it is expected like 10, 11, 12 is where it is. So if you're taking I always forget if it's over or under on the wording on these particular bets, but if you are saying he's going to go higher than 10, you're going to be right on the edge. You're going to be right on the edge of that, I believe. So I would probably take, assuming over means a higher number, thus a lower draft pick, I would probably favor the over in this regard.
So the over and
from
under,
everything I've seen,
the over under on these bets are as it sounds rather than logically what you think it should be. So if it says over a number, it means they're going to go lower in the draft because the number is above, and under is you think you're going to go higher in the draft. It's counterintuitive. Anyway, sorry, Ant. I
feel like this is like tangentially. I feel like this is tangentially to how do you regard Shamar Stewart?
Yeah,
because I think Mike Green is not as good as Shamar Stewart.
The third round pick.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back to the production.
You know, another thing about the production is, you know, before we get into Mike Green, I want to piggyback what Chris said. There's a lot of money being involved here. I mean, the guy has an agent. Somebody should have told him, it's like, look, you got a chance to go in the top 10 if you get 8.5 sacks this year. Why wasn't he getting sacks? I would have ignored every single run assignment and just gone right after the quarterback just to get that sack number up, because we're talking about a guy who could go anywhere from 15 to 32. But if he had 8.5 sacks, we're talking about top 10 player all day long. So, I mean, you know, but to answer the question about Green, every NFL team's going to have a different opinion. Some teams are, I think there's seriously probably 12, maybe 15 teams that are just going to take them off the board completely. I think it's that serious. I really do. I think the over under number, and I'm again, I don't have any betting. I'm just guessing. I think it's 17.5. And that's Cincinnati. And it's funny because Cincinnati is famous. Mike Brown, I'm sorry, not Mike Green. Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, is the only GM that's come out publicly and said, I don't draft small school players in the first round. So, and I always look at like a draft, if somebody puts a small school player with the Bengals, I was kind of, okay, this guy didn't do his research, you know, but yeah, I think the betting number's at 17.5. And it's just because of that, whatever happened in Virginia, you know, teams are going to be scared.
I agree entirely with Dan. That was my exact number for it. Specifically, that little part of the draft where from 15, you got Arizona need an edge, Falcons need an edge, Bengals need an edge, Bucks need an edge. You've got the kind of a lift there where there could be a run on him. And if he's not necessarily top on someone's board, enough other guys might be gone by then that he gets picked. I would say 17.5, but I would hit the under. I reckon he would go before 20, though.
Ash, to finish us off.
28.5.
Oh,
wow.
wow.
It's the character concerns, small school, the fact he's undersized. So for me, it's 28.5 because then suddenly you've got us, well, you've got Baltimore and us who arguably need an edge, but have to like sort of grit stuff like maybe we've got past enough. But then you've got Dan Quinn in Washington who took Sam Williams with Dallas a couple of years ago. They really need an edge. He doesn't really care about character concerns. Buffalo arguably need an edge to go opposite Greg Russo. Kansas City might need an edge to bookend George Karlaftis. And again, considering some of the wide receivers maybe don't care much about character concerns. And then Philadelphia, who, you know, took Jalen Carter after what he did in Georgia. So you've got that sort of run there from 27 to 32, where they arguably could all take him depending on their evaluation. So I'm putting it slap bang in the middle of that 28.5 between us and Washington.
Hey Ash, is it over or under?
Oh, that's not the number though. That is not the number.
Just Ash's number.
And then I'll be over it. I'll say over. I think if it's there at 28, we probably pass.
So the actual number, Dan and Dan again on the nose, 17.5 is the number. The favorite is the over, so favorite to go 18 or above. That would be, sorry, 18 or below, I should say. God, it's really playing havoc with the language here. So he is, trying to work this out now, minus 330 to go 18 or above. So if you think he might go 17 or lower, he's plus 240.
That's a good number.
It's an interesting number. Yeah, I'm tempted to put some money on that myself. Okay, what else do we have here?
If I may bring one to the table here.
Please do.
Offensive lineman in the first round. That is now tabled currently at 6.5. So, and the over is the under's the favorite for it. So I think at the minute it's minus 130 for under 6.5. It's plus 100 for over 6.5. So obviously you've got like Campbell and Membo up there, and then you're looking at guys like Banks, Bell, Simmons, Booker, Donovan Jackson, Josh Connolly. Like, are they going to be more than 6.5? Me, I would. And I, we need to ask Dan here, because Dan's team might be the one that decides whether this is or not. But I think there might be more than 6.5. I would go against the money here. I think it's a good value, but I don't know what you guys all think. 6.5, above, below.
That's a great number though. I'm literally, I got my mock draft, and I know I didn't do this before I came on here, so I'm looking at my mock draft right now, and you're 100% correct. I think, because I got 6, and spoiler alert, I don't have Kansas City going offensive line in round 1. But if they did, then it would be 7 in mine. So I think 6.5 is a good number. I think, boy, that's a good one though, because a couple of these teams I'm looking at, what? Let me see here. I want to make sure I have my number correct here. Let's see. I got 6 going in the first round myself, but I have Kansas City passing up an offensive lineman. If they do what most people think that they're going to do and take one, then yeah, that's a good number. And then the under 6, what's that number?
Under 6.5, it's minus 130. Over 6.5 is plus 100.
So over is
even money.
Over is even money. Over is even money.
Yeah, just about.
Even though I have 6, I would bet on over.
So I'm just going back through the history on a few drafts just from some of my notes. Like, I think we only had 5 in 2023. You hit close to 6 in the first half of 2024. 2022 also featured something like 8. This is always a position where people are going to spend the draft capital. The big question this year, of course, is, especially in a lot of top 100 boards, is there seems to be a bit of a gap between Campbell and Membo as tackles 1 and 2, and then there seems to be a lot of reprioritization until you get down to someone like, say, Josh Simmons and Tyler Booker, who I don't know how much the athletic scores are going to really sink Booker in regards to what he's done, or Kelvin Banks Jr., where do we even put him? I think you're right in that it's going to probably come on the back 9 of round 1 on whether or not this hits the over. I'd like to say that it's going to. I'm just trying to game out in my head who all those would be. But I think you look at the trends of the NFL, this is always a position, especially if you're combining tackles plus guards, and, guards aren't usually day 1 picks, but there are some very good guards in this draft, whereas there seems to be a bit of a gap between the top 3 tackles and what comes next after Simmons, which I'm not even sure who I'd even think is tackle 4 off the top of my head right now, and I'm not saying probably Josh Connerly out of Oregon. He could Connerly could probably be a day 1 guy as well. So I mean, if you're giving me at least 4 tackles deep and saying there's guards, and maybe Zabel's considered a center to take on day 1, I think I'd take over. Over is probably where I would lean on that. I don't feel terribly great about it, but I do as I do the math in my head, I think just history favors you in regards to this is a unit that is always drafted heavily on day one.
I would come out strongly in favour of the under. Strongly in favour. So when I did my mock draft, I had only 4 gone by pick 30. I then did go back to back 31 and 32 offensive line, but that still only left me the 6.
The hook's killing you, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much talent in the draft beyond pick. In the second half of the first round, where I expect a lot of the defensive linemen to go and a lot of corners to go. I know that answer there may not be a huge amount of DBs in round 1, but I kind of feel like teams are going to start feeling the pinch and the rush could come at defensive line and corner. So, that there are players that have had a lot of first round hype that have kind of fallen out of the first round recently in terms of mock drafts. Players like Siobhan Ravel, Benjamin Morrison, those sorts of players who I believe teams are going to be higher on than the media have now become. I think teams were probably that they were first round picks before the season has finished. And we've seen historically DBs that have had really good starts to their college career and then have kind of fallen off later actually still get drafted quite highly. So I think them falling is overblown, and that's going to push some of the offensive linemen down, because if you look at day 2, where I expect to find Josh Connolly at the top of that, but then you have Donovan Jackson, Ariante Ursery, Jonas Savanier, Marcus Mbow, Tate Ratledge. Like there's no FOMO with like that talent level. Once you get beyond someone like Tyler Booker, who I do think will firmly go in round 1, I think he's too good not to. There's a bit of a drop off, and then I think they're so close together that if you miss one, well, who cares? I'll get the next one.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious here. All you guys have Simmons going in round 1, or
I have them going to you.
Oh, really? Yeah, I would not be mad at that at all.
No, I think it's hard to ignore Simmons. I'm worried about his penalties that he keeps taking, but I think it's very easy to say he's tackle 3, and I think that still puts you squarely in day 1 territory.
So you mentioned, Dan, you don't have them taking an offensive lineman. Now that is, betting wise, the outright favorite position for the Chiefs to take first. So is there some insider knowledge? Is there some value that can be had with the other positions? Because I think the defensive line's next. It's plus 200. There's been chatter about running back. Now I know there's scars back for the Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's day and whatnot, but that's plus 500. Corners plus 900. I mean, you don't have to tell us who you've picked in yours, but position group wise, is there value to be had there?
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% correct, because I think the Chiefs took a swing at trying to start a rookie at left tackle. The Chiefs offense is extremely complex, and they've also had success in later round picks. I don't think the Chiefs are going to ask a rookie to protect Mahomes' backside. I think that they're going to lean towards veterans. The position group for Kansas City, I think, is it's going to be like this: defensive tackle, corner, running back. Trayvon Henderson is my big draft crush, and that's who I want at 31. I'd like to see some speed in the backfield. I'd like to see Patrick Mahomes just dump the ball off on a screen pass and have the guy have the ability to score. That's not who I have, but it would be a lot of fun. I also think corner. The Chiefs are going to draft a corner, maybe 2 in this draft, and the Chiefs are going to draft probably 1 or 2 defensive tackles. We lost a couple of our defensive tackles in free agency. Chris Jones is entering year 12. I mean, 12. That's a big fucking number here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not allowed to cuss here, or
Dan, we are British. It is part of our vernacular to swear. You absolutely must cuss, and I insist.
Yeah, I mean he's fucking year 12. So that by the way, that's position group I have going in round 1, defensive tackle. And if you take a look at the Super Bowl, how did Philly beat Kansas City? Well, they had this dominant defensive line. That's what teams do, So I think it's going to be defensive tackle in the end of the day. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City is one of these teams that moves up a few spots and gets a defensive tackle.
I was just about to ask, did you say that? Because they generally tend to go back, don't they? Like they're the ones you look
Yeah,
at there. But it seems after last year, like giving you what they only had 2 top picks last year, and so
Mhm.
Mataya's already been kicked inside. Does he
Yeah.
need to make a bit of a splash this year to
I
keep the
don't
team up there?
he may not even start, but the one thing about him is that he's a redshirt sophomore coming into Kansas City. He's a young kid. He's Panay Sewell's cousin. And this is just because they kicked him inside doesn't mean he can never play left tackle again. There's cases. Jonathan Ogden, Hall of Fame left tackle. You know what he did year one? He played inside. He was a guard. It's rare for teams to do that, but you can take a guy and say, listen, play guard, we'll kick you outside the tackle. And that could be the play, but he's not guaranteed a spot. But I think he'll win out. And there's a chance the guy that we got from San Francisco who we gave him a 2-year, $30 million deal. His name escapes me. I'm not
Galen
overly
Moore.
happy about it. Yeah, he's just a guy, I mean, there's a chance Sua Matea 2026, they kick him out the left tackle and let him go from there. But when you have a guy that young, that talented, just because you move him inside for 1 year doesn't mean that you've given up on him forever. So, but do I think a rookie is going to be the starting left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs? Absolutely not. So that's kind of my thought process.
All right, I'm going to move us on because I know that we've been live for a little while. So I'm going to go quick fire on 2 things. I'm going to finish with some hot takes and just let you guys come out with some outrageous things to finish off. But first, I want us to go a little quick fire on something which actually I think is Ant's speciality in particular. And I'm putting you on the spot here, but please, anyone come forward with this. I want you to come forth with your takes of the position group the team is going to draft. And you touched on that for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, for example, with Kansas City, is -140 for offensive linemen, +175 for defensive linemen, and then cornerback is +1,000. Those are the top 3. So, with that in mind, if you have any ideas on exactly what position group a team is going to go for, because and I know that you have some very strong convictions always on, especially who the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to draft. You've seemed to have been a very good hit rate on them over the years. Do you have anyone?
I don't know this year.
Well, this is ruining my bit, Ant. Do you have someone else that you'd like to stand for? I mean, I think the Jets are a really interesting one here in particular because of Aaron Glenn. But, if anyone has any strong feelings on a team, come forth.
Jets should draft a tackle. Like, that's the
go.
be-all and end-all of it.
Yeah.
Don't do a
Offensive
tight
line.
end. Don't do it.
Okay, so the Jets are -170 for an offensive lineman and +300 for a tight end. And those are the top 2.
What are the odds on the Bears taking a running back, period? Not just Gentry, just running back.
I don't have that in front of me, but their odds are exceptionally close in 4 different position groups for their first pick. So running back is the favorite at +210. Offensive lineman is then +260. So is tight end, and defensive lineman is +375. If they fucking go tight end, I will be laughing all around the room. It will be incredible.
I think it's become tremendously sexy for mock drafters to try to peg the Rams as a quarterback team, partly because there's questions about how much longer we'll have out of Matthew Stafford. I think those people have no brains. I think they have been drooling over their keyboards for way too long in this regard. Once again, Matt Stafford derangement syndrome comes into full play. That said, I'm curious to how much a cornerback would go. What we're talking about for cornerback odds for the LA Rams. I think that seems to be their most. It would either be that or their line, but I do think like we started to see a little bit more on the offensive line near the end of the year. Enough that I still believe that their big fault right now lies in that defensive backfield. And I've seen a lot of people mocking, I want to say Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky.
Kentucky, yeah.
Makes a ton of sense. I'll just take the entire corner position for the Rams.
So that is the favorite. For the Rams, they are plus 240 to take a cornerback. Next is offensive line at plus 290. And then quarterback is plus 475.
Ooh,
Stay
what's
away.
the odds for what's the odds for tight end?
Plus 650.
Because
The
Diana
problem
Brucey
with them at tight end is like they're not, by the time they get to where they are in the draft, like the day one tight ends are going to be gone. I believe that. I believe Loveland and Warren will both be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly Diana Brucey is tweeted. Well, last I suppose she just tweeted a couple of hours ago that they are looking to move up potentially to get a tight end.
Oh, Diana Rossini tweeted that? Okay, then
Yeah.
I'm fading her completely. Okay, then I feel even more confident about my position. That Diana Rossini is saying this.
Who is tight end number 3 in the draft? I mean, is it
Seems to be Mason
is it
Taylor
Mason
right now.
Taylor?
Mason Taylor, yeah.
Is he really a first round pick?
No,
I don't
are people
believe so.
people looking at his,
Mid-second.
I mean, are people looking
Mid-second.
at his bloodlines and going, oh yeah, that's a first round guy? Because I mean, I didn't see it myself, and then I've seen a few mock drafts where I've seen a few where he goes to Philly at 32, and
Boy,
I'm like,
Well, so
I'm not big on him either. I like the guy out of Bowling Green. I like Harold Fannin Jr.
Yeah.
He's not day one by any stretch of the imaginations, but I
no.
do believe middle of day 2. But like I mean, because I just know it's the pedigree and again smaller school as the sinker stone there. But I do think like especially against someone like why did I just blank on the name?
you talk about the kid from Miami.
Elijah Arroyo.
Yeah, Arroyo.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like I think Fannon's better than Arroyo.
Yeah.
Arroyo's hurt all the time, and he got hurt in the pre-draft process as well. That'll knock him right down. Back to the Rams very quickly, and I know this is the hottest of hot takes because they would sooner die and go to hell than draft one of these in the first round. But I do see Carson Schwessinger ending up there. I think they finally buck their trend of not picking linebackers.
That would
They need
be a
one.
decent pick. You know,
That would be
I
a
think that'd be
particular
decent
coup.
pick.
That'd be a very particular coup too, because that would mean like, okay, we're talking Jahad Campbell's probably then off the board, and the Rams, assuming they're staying pat, are picking 26. So we're talking like in the top 32 linebackers. That would buck a lot of trends, because I know like Campbell's the one who's bucking that trend right now, just because he is the closest thing you'll have to a 5-tool player at the linebacker position. He has that edge rusher DNA. I just wrote his profile for Pride of Detroit. And, you know, we're talking about a guy who was recruited out of school as an edge rusher being converted by Nick Saban. By the way, if you hear any interview with Jahad Campbell, he has some of the best Nick Saban stories. What was the one? He has a great quote from him that I absolutely have to use now, which is like, if we feel bad about ourselves, kiss my ass. But no, Saban converted him. So I guess my point is like there always seems to be. We did this on POD where it's like, are there day one linebackers? I guess it's just Jahad Campbell. All of us are going to talk about Jahad Campbell, but for there to be 2 on day one would be a bit of a coup. But I agree. Like I do think and that is something fascinating about linebacker there, especially to pair up with some of the studs they have in their front 7.
I love it. I love Schwessinger. It fits so well.
He is. He's like Jack, and you know he could be that good. And eventually, you have to get a leader for your defense. You do, and he would be it. I don't know, it's a gut feeling, let's say, but that's plus 900. So I'm going to stick a little bit on that just to really add. And plus, if they trade back as well, because some people are saying that Philly might, because I think Philly will come up for somebody. Philly will try and jump us for some D lineman or something. I think if the Rams, especially if they got back there. Yeah,
the peanut bet. You don't want to put too much on it, but you're going to get a good thing. It's what my it's what Bill Krakenberger. I produce a show with Bill Krakenberger, who was a very much so a Philly-born man, as he says, born with a parlay slip in his hand, who has been a Vegas lifer. But he always likes to talk about just not putting real money on it, just a little peanut. Which the bill is still like 4 or 5 digits, but for the rest of us, like
Okay, I found my value bet for the show. Here is what I think is something that I might actually stick a good amount of money on because I believe it in my bones, despite everything pointing to the contrary. Dallas Cowboys, first pick. I have mocked them an edge. I believe they should go edge, and I believe where they're picking, edge might be the best pick. They are highly favoured to go wide receiver because of what CeeDee Lamb has to go with him. So wide receiver is minus 240. I strongly believe in edge. Strongly. And that is plus 1,200.
Ooh.
I just feel like the edge value there is going to be a lot to pass up for them. And the thing is, wide receiver, again, is deep. And edge is not. I know that people say it's a great edge class. Get beyond round 1, you're still picking guys who are like, well, I hope they're good. Okay, fine. There's a lot of players we hope are good in that range, but you can get a good wide receiver in round 2, a really good one. Whereas the edge guys, it's still like projection, they're second round edge, you're not going to be starting them. Whereas, I think that Michael Williams would be an incredible replacement for Tank Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask about another position in regards to the Cowboys, if you have
Sure.
those odds up? Could you give me the odds for running back?
Plus 900.
And what did you say the position you took was? You were taking
1,200.
edge.
Yeah. To all defensive lines.
And running back, I'm sorry, one more time on running back. Plus 900?
900.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, not as much as I'd want, but
Good work.
I think if anyone's going to jump a little early for Amarian Hampton,
Oh, that would be so beautiful
Would
if
be
they
Jarrett.
do. Be great.
it would be Jarrett. And I'm not saying that as a knock on Amarian Hampton. I actually think he's fantastic. But I have to handicap this in the sense that I'm thinking about Jerry Jones here. And that team
Yeah.
has not been the same. Well, I mean, a lot of that's just the breakdown of their core of their offense. That offensive line has aged tremendously, but also they had no run game to speak of last year. And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And I do believe that I should have thought about this with Genty. I just don't think Genty's going to get passed down to 12 where the Cowboys are concerned. And I don't see, and Jerry is not the kind of guy who wheels and deals with trades. But Amarian Hampton going for the next best thing. Shoot, I could see him going in for that. And I'm going to do a little Jared Jones. I think he's just going to be a strong running guy for us.
God, that accent's almost as good as Brian Kelly's southern accent.
Listen, I'm making. You know what? No. We took the PJ link out here. So listen, in Jared's words, I want me some glory hole.
Oh, wow. Jesus Christ. Right. Last call for any position groups here for the teams, and then I want to move on to some hot takes just to finish off.
There's one, and I'm almost thinking it's a negative number. Would be the Colts. Almost every mock draft has them taking a tight end. It's got to be a negative number for tight end for Indy, doesn't it?
Even money.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right.
Green
What about
Bay
wide receiver
corner.
with him?
Sorry.
Corner?
Say Green Bay corner.
Yeah,
Second favourite position.
behind
It
wide
is-
receiver.
No.
Edge.
Cornerback is plus 165. Defensive lineman edge is even money. What else did you want there, Ash? Wide receiver. Fourth favourite, plus 600.
Never put money on that, people. They are not drafted first round receivers, which they want to beg. Gutekunst won't do it.
Mhm. No, they never do.
Really,
It's a weird trend. Pittsburgh and Green Bay don't like first round wide receivers. I don't know why.
So cornerback playing plus 165 feels like good value because of what has happened to Jair Alexander, and I think it's what they should do. It's Green Bay, it's Gutekunst, they're going defensive line, and it's even money. That's just what they're going to do. That's what they always do.
They're going to take Donovan, aren't they, and break Moan and Ant's hearts.
That really doesn't feel like a Green Bay pick. I do not see that as a
Their
fit.
defensive coordinator was literally his head coach in college.
I don't
Jeff Hackman.
care. He's not the GM.
Yeah, but their last high pick at edge didn't exactly work out. They've got to break the mold on
Yep,
what they do.
but Green Bay never break the mold on what they do. They have a tried and tested formula which sees them now fail behind us each season. So,
By the way, I love that they came out and said that they don't use Raz internally, which I do have Kent Lee Platty on our streaming show every year. And I don't think he's ever, I mean, he would agree with that sentiment completely, but I believe, as we've talked about in the past, whatever Kent came up with the RAS scores, the relative athletic scores, the cards that you see everyone kind of copying from him at this point, is that he seems to have hit upon a system that was already in use by teams like the Packers. So it's just a very funny thing. We're like, no, we're not using Raz because I'm pretty sure it's going to be like, honey, we have Raz at home.
All right, just finally to finish off, the Lions are favoured to take a defensive lineman or edge. That is minus 150. Offensive line is plus 240. Wide receiver is plus 1200. And I know several people who claim to be draftniks who have put substantial money on the Lions taking a wide receiver in round 1.
I'm going to annoy people here. I'm going to annoy people here, but given what was said about Will Johnson earlier, and the fact that Maxwell Hairston does hang around if they do trade back a bit, that plus 1400 for a quarterback does scream a little bit of value as well. It's something he might do.
Because if it's the best position, if it's the best player on the board, Brad will take him.
If Will Johnson falls to 28, you pick him and you figure your way around it. That's what Brad does. He said it when he came here. He goes, they did it with the Rams.
You guys are all Lions fans. I don't know if Chris is, but
yeah,
Chris is.
Okay.
I cover them.
All right.
Oh,
how would you guys? I'm floored by this. I am absolutely floored by this. As somebody who's not a Lions fan, how would you guys feel if the Lions did take a wide receiver at 28? I'd almost be pissed if I was a Lions fan. But I mean, you guys would be on board for that?
I think we talked about it. We talked about it on the Pride of Detroit podcast a while back. There is, I think, a need for wide receiver somewhere on the depth chart. Lions want to look at the draft as far as long-term needs. And right now, long-term needs, who do you really have signed long-term is just Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm not saying this unlike one person I happen to know in the blog space who I have had actual beefs with in the past and who might have actually tried to be incredibly mean to me at one point. Not anyone on this panel, mind you.
I'd say not me this time.
No. And me and Chris talked about this 2 years ago on this very show. He tried to get you fired, right?
Oh no, that was a Colts writer. Okay, that was a Colts writer.
It's a different guy you have beef with.
No. This is someone who has been I know particularly throwing a lot of stuff at a wall in regards to Jameson Williams. But I think I'm just going to stop there because my mouth will get me into trouble. But that's okay because I blocked this person repeatedly. Either way, I do believe there is I'm not saying if the Lions draft a wide receiver, Jameson Williams is getting shipped out of town or whatever the bleep people believe in this regard. But I mean, past Amon-Ra St. Brown and a potential contract for JMO. And, we've brought up he might play himself out of that contract with how well he does with a 5th-year option and the final year of his rookie deal. But Tim Patrick isn't going to be on this roster for a long time. Khalif Raymond, God bless his soul, but he's not, I would believe, a wide receiver number 2. There is a need for a wide receiver 2 with the Detroit Lions. Is that need worth pick number 28? God, I do not believe so. But I don't think it's off Brad Holmes's draft board by any stretch of the imagination, especially X receiver. They have not had a wide receiver X. Josh Reynolds gave him a lot of production. Tim Patrick's okay, but that long-term wide receiver X is still really much so. Yes, Matt. Yes.
I've got two dream picks at 60, which is Alec Ayomino or Tate Ratledge. Either of those two picks there would be absolutely lovely for me.
Tate Ratledge is phenomenal. Tate Ratledge, we talk about him all the time on the podcast. He's phenomenal as a guard.
And do it.
So there's this one that I would feel absolutely... It'd be one of those where I know it's wrong, but I like it. You get one of those, and if you do it there, a receiver... If they did Jaden Higgins at 28, it would feel so wrong, but I would love it so much. It's just one of those where I wouldn't be able to deny myself the fact that I would be absolutely delighted. But at the same point, I really, 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 really want a defensive line player. But that would be the one which I would subconsciously make an acceptance for. A burden, maybe, but if you're going to give me the two, as Chris says, we need next. I love Luther. Luther can play all along the lines, but it's like Luther and Amon-Ra. I'd want to give them both 20 targets a game, and you can't do that. So,
See,
but Jaden will be the one for me. If we're going to do that, then yeah.
oh, I thought he was going to stand to wait till 102 and then get a certain UNLV.
I'd do it,
Like
not
3 punts.
Yeah, not 4.
I do think every sign points to Aya Manor being a day 2 guy for the Detroit Lions, especially with David Shaw on the roster and being put in charge of the passing game coordination. Like that screams like, wow, we could probably have a reunion here in some fashion or another. I'm trying to remember the guys who I had written down. I think a lot of the one who I really liked, and I know he's probably a day 3 guy, was T-Slaw, who is spelled like Tesla with an extra, but it's pronounced it's pronounced T-Slaw, yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
out of Arkansas, and I know Brookler, I think, put him as day 3. I think I probably would see him like late day 2, but that's another big dude who just runs pretty well. Who I think he balled out pretty well at the combine, so he's absolutely someone I would keep an eye on.
Fantastic prospect. He's a converted quarterback who's played 2 seasons at wide receiver, and at Arkansas last year, he only played 50% of the snaps, even though he was apparently this day 2 guy in this draft, which a lot of people are saying now. It's like, Arkansas didn't trust him to play more than half the snaps last year, and there's a reason for that. He's super raw. He's traitsy, but he can't play outside, despite the fact that he's 6'4" or 6'5". Like,
so
he
you're
can't play
saying
outside.
Developmental project and Brad Holmes.
Well, yeah, sure, but that's great for round 5 or round 6.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm super high on him being like a late round 4 guy. But
if you want to talk late development guys, why don't we get Amon-Ra's old high school teammate who used to play for Tennessee, Brew McCoy?
Listen, you're telling me to get any other guys out of oh God, I'm getting my West Coast schools confused. Modern Day, right? Is it Modern Day where Amon-Ra St. Brown? Okay. My brain was almost about to say it, but it was starting to choke on St. John Bosco. So like, I just had to make sure. But yeah, Modern Day. Like, listen, you tell me any athlete out of Modern Day, that is the California factory for NFL talent. Like, it's gimme.
So the value bet I have for the Lions, by the way, just to kind of close this off, and I thought had a really good idea about going corner. The other DB position is the value position here, because the Lions clearly have a need at safety. We don't have anyone at safety 3. And there's going to be plenty of guys who want to go in that late round 1, or if we do trade back into the top of day 2, where those safeties are going to be really great value. I mean, if Malachi Starks does fall to 28, it's going to be hard to pass on that. That is plus 2,800. And it makes sense for it to happen. So even if there are other positions where it makes more sense in value, if the Lions trade back, it absolutely comes into the picture. And plus 2,800 means it has to happen 4% of the time for it to be value. Like, come on. It's just sitting there.
Do you think the Chiefs have risk taking a receiver so high up again, Dan? Oh,
I was floored when they traded up for Worthy. It's a fun fact. We traded up with Buffalo to get Mahomes, and then we traded up with Buffalo to get Worthy, and they end up being Bills killers. So it's just kind of funny. But I don't think so. We signed Hollywood Brown again to a 1-year deal, and we also got Juju Smith-Schuster, who he's a great player. You just can't trust him to be healthy. He's got this. There's a guy who told me this. He's got like a 75-year-old man's knee. Except for that, everything about him's great. But it's not out of the range of possibility, because you guys talk about Luther Burden a little bit. I love that guy. I would love for him to be in Kansas City. I really would. I don't think it's out of the range of possibility, but I think it's a little unlikely, because we did re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster and Hollywood Brown again. and we're hoping that Rashee Rice comes back. So we'll see, but I don't think it's outside range of possibility. No.
I mean, Juju's on a 1.3 mil deal. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? Like,
Yeah. Exactly. And you know, you're kind of you signed that deal because you're like doing this. Like, are you going to stay healthy? Can we just get 12 out of you? Can we just get 12 games out of you? And that's kind of my thought process there on that. But Hollywood Brown missed, I think, almost the whole season. We gave him 12 million just to do what we're doing. So hopefully he could play, and that would be a lot of fun, you know, two fast guys with Rashee Rice underneath. So but
more likely it's one of the, what was it, 63 and 66 they pick out after that.
Is it more likely to be one of those? The Jarius Sneed trade ended up really working out. We got a late round pick last year. I forget who they used it on. And then we get pick number 66 from the Titans. And I don't know if you guys heard about this. He was involved in some shooting incident outside Target of all places.
Oh my
you know,
God.
you signed an $80 million contract and you're involved in some drive-through shooting at Target of all fucking places. I'll use fuck again. So since they got the approval there, but I'm just, he was one of those guys that when he left, I was like, man, I really wanted him to stay. And then, you know, he got hurt, and then this crazy incident, you know, who knows what's going to happen, you know, but yeah.
Ash, that wasn't worthy of the Capitals on the prep doc. Breaking news from the Lions: they have released a player ahead of the draft. It is a disaster for the quarterback room, as potential backup quarterback Jake Fromm is no longer on the roster.
What a shame.
What a shame. State Farm rep no longer here.
So Kyle Allen, number 2 quarterback.
So that means Jalen Milroe at 28 now. Wow.
Oh.
What a pick that'd be.
Well,
hey man, I can already hear Mike. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone typing away for that article.
Okay. Someone. We know who that is. Anyway.
No one.
Okay, so we've gone a little long, and I still want to do 10 minutes on this. So hot takes. We've had a couple, but just strictly, here are the taglines that I have for this, and just throw some out there if you feel strongly about it. Players you're going to stand for against consensus. I know, Ant, you've got Ricky White already, and you've claimed that as your own. Players you dislike despite the consensus. Someone you think is going to fall badly, irrespective of how you feel about them, they're going to go much lower than their consensus. Or a team which is going to make a massive reach. Who do you think is going to reach the furthest for a player? So that's obviously very broad, but if anything jumps out at you, I mean, who are some of your favorite prospects in the draft that are kind of ranked lowly? I think is kind of the low-hanging fruit question here. Who do you stand for?
I already brought it up, but James Pierce, I think he's going to go. I don't want to say where, but I'll put him in the top half of my final mock draft. And I don't understand why there's so many mock drafts putting him in the second round or late first. I mean, he dominated SEC competition, ran a 4.47 at the combine. I mean, this is wide receiver speed, and he's got length, room to put on muscle, so he could be, you know, a base. If you're, I still use 3-4-4-3. I'm trying to break that habit, but I'm old school. I still use it. But he could be an outside linebacker. He can be a defensive end. I don't understand why. This is a guy I think that's going to be better than people think. This is a really, really good prospect. Also, I have an SEC bias. Like if you give me an SEC versus a Pac-10 player, I'm always going to take the SEC player just based on the SEC. And I know how crazy those fans are in the schools and everything. But James Pierce is a guy, I don't understand why people are putting him below 20. I've seen some of mock drafts where he's early round too. No sense to me whatsoever. The player I'm lower on, I'm going to call him Ted McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. I keep in mind, I just drew a blank on the guy's name. The Atlanta Falcons wide receiver was picked 8th overall out of USC.
Drake London.
Drake London.
Yeah,
Drake London.
Yeah, I didn't. He's kind of proven me wrong, but he was a guy I also didn't think would go in the top 10. And Falcons choose him at 8, making me look like a moron. But Yeah, I don't really see the appeal. And I heard he went public saying, "Oh yeah, I don't watch film." And like, who the hell says that? I mean, just keep your mouth shut. Somebody hopefully got in his ear and said, "Yeah, don't ever say anything like that again." But he's a guy that I think is going to go a lot lower in the draft than people think.
My one that I stand for, well, everyone who listens to podcasts know it. The Louisville Edge, Ashton Gillott. I've loved him ever since he wrecked FSU a couple of years ago. Where he's getting ranked right now, sort of late round 3, early round 4. I think he could be in play at 60 for the Lions if we don't go edge with our 28.
I know Jeremy was just ranting about him on a couple of our podcasts ago when we were doing the edge group.
Yeah, he's just because he got misused at Louisville. He played inside a lot. He finally switched out 2 years ago to the edge. Had a breakout season, kind of fell back down to earth a bit this year with Louisville kind of falling off a tiny bit, but still good. Had a good RAS card, good grit index. I think he was a tier 3 on Eric, and between him and Anthony's grit index, just a perfect fit. And then the player disliked despite consensus, probably contentious because I know quite a few of the panel says you really like him. Nick Erenwari. I think he's the next Obi Melofon. We just don't see it. I've seen the tape, tackling issues, so can't really play strong safety. Doesn't have the sort of root squeeze to play free safety single high. I just don't see where he's going to. I don't see the first round hype. Maybe late day 2, picking him up and then training him up. So if he somehow falls and we get him training up safety free and then unleash him that way, I'd love it. But I just don't see the first round hype for him. He's a round 3 player for me.
Wow. I think just based on his combine, I have a hard time seeing him getting out of round 1 just based on that combine. I mean, well, he had a 43 vertical at 230. Ran a 4.39.
He plays safety with a linebacker body. He's just a terrifying man to come at you.
I mean, Arizona drafted a player like that not long ago in the top 8. I can't remember what his name was.
Isaiah Simmons.
God.
The fact you forgot his name. The fact you forgot his name kind of proves one point. No, he would get overdrafted because of the athleticism.
It reminds me so much.
Did you forget his name just because it was a bad player because he went to the Arizona Cardinals though?
That's mean on 2 counts.
Yes, it is. It is.
I've got 2 players that I stand for, both in a similar range. Sebastian Castro, safety of Iowa. Think that he's massively underrated. 126 on my consensus board, which is built from Pro Football Network, Tankathon, PFF, Dane Brugler, and Bleacher Report. So fairly mainstream stuff. The other guy, very similar range that I stand for, is Chase Lunt, tight end UConn. I think it's going to be an incredibly high-end tight end 2, low-end tight end 1 in this league. And he goes at 129. I don't really have anyone I want to fade big time, but really, it's low-hanging fruit. Maybe Jared Ivey, because a lot of people seem to still really like him, but I genuinely think that he should be near UDFA territory. He just
Jaden Ivey, that is.
Yes, Jared Ivey.
Jared Ivey. Jared Ivey.
The Ole Miss edge. Yeah, terrific production at Ole Miss, but really helped by everyone else at Ole Miss. And can he even move? It looks like he's in the mud when he's running. I'm like, come on, get on with it. I can run faster than you. It hurts me. It genuinely hurts me to watch him play.
I don't know how the consensus views Cam Scatabo, but I'm here for it. I'm here to just see him go as high as possible, do insane, stupid things. And yeah, people can say, well, he's not actually conducive to the NFL this week. I don't give a damn. This man, I know the Lions just met with Cam Scatabo. I'm like, yeah, I think someone told me that is probably just so to see if Dan Campbell could wrestle him. That man is made for some crazy, Jim Harbaugh, Dan Campbell, someone's going to get their hands on Cam Scatabo. I don't know how he even fits in the Lions running back room, but someone's going to get their hand on Scatabo and just be very, very happy about what that guy can do. Cause he can do a little bit of everything. And that makes you stand out in my mind, especially because excuse me.
New England.
New England, like, yeah, any like meathead coach out there can absolutely see the value in a Cam Scatabo. And I think there's two positions where you really want a lot of versatility on what you can do, and that's running back and linebacker. Cam Scatabo's that for me. I like a lot of linebackers who can do that too. Not quite Jack Kaiser, but I think I had a bit of crush on Smile Munden, I think was my big riser. The Georgia linebacker, and I know that there's a little bit of questions about his body, that physically he's kind of a little maxed out, but I don't care. The man is tremendous. He, in my mind, is a linebacker, not quite Jihad Campbell, but kind of like we have Jihad Campbell at home. And also he happens to play special teams as well. So Smile Munden is like really kind of, I've locked him in day two. Man, when we did the podcast for the linebackers, like I think Jeremy had Demetrius Knight, I had Smile Munden, Ryan stumped for Carson Sweshinger. Like day two is going to be really interesting to see where linebackers go, because I think any one of those guys, I'm happy with all three of them. And that's not even to say anything about Jack Kaiser, who I think is probably a day three pick. Guys that I'm not as high on, I think I've hinted it through this here. I've got real questions about Gray Zabel being the top. Well, first off, center, I guess that's maybe an issue with the fact that there are no strong centers in this class. And again, like, I guess you played a little bit of center when you were doing the Senior Bowl, I guess. I don't think that puts you above Jared Wilson in my book. And as far as a pure guard, I think there's probably like, I'm not sure. I think he's far and away the best guard in this class in that regard. I think there's some real questions between him and Tyler Booker or even Kelvin Banks Jr. in that. I've not really been. I've told people a lot. I'm not really thrilled when I see a mock with the Lions taking Gray Zabel, because I just do not. I just don't see it. I just don't see it, and I see a big fish being taken out of a small pond when it comes to Gray Zabel, and I'm just not impressed.
And do you have any thoughts on these two? Because I'm conscious you've been pensive.
Well, everybody,
about are you talking Zabel or which players are you referring to?
Look, I think Chris was talking about Zabel there, but
yeah, I was talking about Zabel. I'm not as high up on Zabel as as the consensus.
Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier, but was it Cody Mach? He's the guard for Tampa Bay. I think he was chosen late second. You could just cross out Cody Mach and put in Zabel right in there, and you're getting basically the same player. You get some versatility, but I think he's going to go in the first round, but I'm not sure he should.
That's I think is largely my point. I'm not taking him off a board entirely. I see him at the top of interior O-line prospects, and I'm like, I'm not. That's the part I'm not on board with right now.
Yeah,
I guess is like that completely. He's center number one or guard number one.
I think everybody knows who I don't like as much as anyone else, and I argue with pretty much everyone else as part of Lions Nation United as part of this. Shamar Stewart is busting waiting, and I want the Lions to have absolutely nothing to do with him, and thankfully Brad never does. If he's going on his actual skills and that, he should not be a first-round player. It's a traits thing. The same with Darius Robinson last year. It was the same with Chop Robinson the year before. Guys like this, it's just, I'm sorry, no, don't want anything to do with them.
Well, I'm gonna push back a little bit on the Stewart thing, just because like the one thing I know about A&M is that they peak rush first, and then if it's not a run play, they go after the passer. You know who also does that is the Detroit Lions. That, however, also accounts for why his sack numbers aren't quite so high, but his pressures are particularly still fine. And he is playing opposite of a actual banshee of a pass runner, Nick Scorton. I think you can make a case if you want someone like Nick Scorton higher, but I think Stewart is still slightly better rounded in spite of not having the sacks. But I agree with you. Like, it is a giant red flag that nobody can seem to like really get around.
It's not that, again, it's the sacks are only one thing, but you sport nearly a 30% missed tackle rate. Your tackling's awful, especially when you're coming up against the run on the edge. So you've got no tackling technique. You've got no technique to get to the quarterback. You're basing it off the traits. I'm just not sold on. I believe guys who are more technically gifted who come up to the NFL do better. It's a personal thing with this, but I don't believe he should be going so high in this draft.
Would you put since it's both Aggie edges in this, would you say Scorton's probably the better prospect on that line out over Stewart?
I would think so. And for Scoton's had 1 year in the system there, so I can get behind the argument that the scheme has held him back because he's had
his
1
Purdue
year
team
there.
His Purdue team is really good. Yeah,
it is, and I liken him back to Karlaftis because Karlaftis stayed at Purdue his entire career, and Dan will be able to corroborate this. What did Karlaftis struggle with first when he came into the NFL was the run. It wasn't necessarily pass rushing, but he took time to adjust to that because he'd never done it before at Purdue. And maybe if Scourton had stayed at Purdue his entire career, yes, he'd have got a ton more sacks, but would he be as rounded as he is now? Probably not. And I think the league is way down on Scourton. That'd probably be one I'm higher on than others. Then he should be a first round pick. A lot of people don't think he should be, but anywho, back to that. Yeah, I'm not as high on Stewart. Guys I'd stand for, obviously, I'm a day 3 guy. I stand for a lot of guys late back there. The really big one is Jackson Slater. I would stand as high as 103 for him now. I think, to replace Graham Glasgow next year when he's done his final year is perfect to get Jackson here now. Basically given his small school background to give him a year to settle in, but I think he'll be taking that job by the end of the year. Obviously Ricky White at receiver. People put him in the 200s. He should be a early day 3 pick at worst. And again, he's what the Lions need. Physical outside wide receiver, ton of upside to him. Great on special teams right away. Sitting behind Patrick a year, he'll fit in our system flawlessly. I love the guy. Obviously Tyler Baddy as our second edge. I want 2 edges. Tyler Batty is the most Dan Campbell guy in this draft, period. I love him. And the Lions need a development edge as well. But I would be picking him up 130 quite happily. A lot of people have him later on day 3. For sure. I think they'd be the 3 I'd completely stand on the late days. Also a lot higher on Makuba than everyone else. I would put Makuba very high on day 2. And if he's the Lions' third safety, I would be happy with that as well.
Yeah, safety from Texas is projected around 100 or so.
Yeah, I'd give up 50 or maybe slightly higher for him. I think he is that good.
I've got 2 guys I think are going to go higher than the consensus, despite the fact that I'm not standing for them in particular. Torrey Horton, Colorado State wide receiver, 125 on the consensus board, but exceptionally gifted wide receiver, good production, 6'2.5", runs a 4.41, very explosive. I just think that's going to play very well. And then the other guy was Chris Ball Jr., linebacker out of Ole Miss. He's 87. I think he'll slip into round 2. So I think they're gonna be drafted higher than consensus. I don't know. Ozzy Trapilo for someone who's going to fall. He's 86 on the board, but I think there's quite a lot of early day 3 guys projected that I quite like more than him. Anyone else want to come up with anything before we get out of here? Because I'm conscious I've gone over our time.
Who's going to overdraft? Bears. I reckon the Bears will go up really high for Ashton Jonty, and they shouldn't. I think they will make a mistake.
It's either them or the Raiders will do the same stupid thing. Like one of them, it almost feels like the Raiders are like, you're telling me the Raiders are going to do something stupid. Trust me, man. There's been enough noise on Genty that I think someone somewhere will do something stupid. If I had to put money between the 2, I would say the Raiders. You know what? That would be a really great index. I need to start doing that every offseason, is the dumb index. And I do think on my dumb index right now, the Raiders grade much higher in being stupid than the Bears right now. I mean, I will give the Bears a little bit of a leeway just because of how they handled free agency. But man, I just never trust the Raiders to do anything right.
Yeah, I think Miami's going to do something just dumb here. I have no confidence in Miami doing anything. They needed some help in the offensive line, and last year, would they draft Chop Robinson last year in the
They've
first
been
round?
blowing up their roster too in a very oddball,
Yeah,
half-hearted way.
they
as well.
like the Jalen Ramsey thing, maybe their best defensive back. They let go of Javon Holland. That made no sense to me at all. I mean, I understand maybe you need some money, but yeah, Miami's just doing all sorts of silly things. I expect them to do something really stupid.
Yeah, they're being woefully mismanaged. They also let go of their left tackle, despite the fact their biggest problem was offensive line. Even though he wasn't
Exactly.
good, it's like,
I
this
mean,
is
and
not
a lot
making
of
you
people,
better.
a lot of people are thinking at this point, they see the writing on the wall that there's going to be a Tyreek Hill trade, and the only reason I think there's not is there's just not a lot of tango partners just yet.
No, I think people, he had off-field incidents here in Kansas City, he had off-field incidents there in Miami. People don't want to deal with that. There was rumors that he was just a handful in the locker room here in Kansas City. Rumors that way. There's rumors Ramsey's a handful in the locker room. That's actually a move I'm kind of expecting draft day is Ramsey, and I think it'll be something crazy like a 5th or a 6th or something, because I have no confidence that Miami knows what they're doing. I think that they're going to be a team that wins like 4 or 5 games. They're going to, fire the general manager, head coach, and blow up the roster. I could also see Tua getting hit and getting a concussion. Unfortunately, that's I was kind of hoping after he had that last concussion, somebody came up to him and said, "Look, you got $100 million. Just retire, coach somewhere, get on TV." But yeah, Miami does something stupid in this draft.
My hot take.
You look towards the GMs on the hot seat, don't you? They're generally the ones who do something stupid. And I think not Ballard there. It's what's his face? Christ, I've lost track now. But
Isn't it Chris Courier?
Chris Courier will do something stupid. Yeah. I think Andrew Berry. I think the Browns. Like Matt made an interesting point earlier, or someone did. Do they try and reunite the 2 Colorado guys together?
That was
if they take Hunter early, how high and how much would he sacrifice to come back up and get both of them? How high would he? Because he would have to. Some team will probably try and rinse the life out of them to get back up high enough to get Shedeur again. But it could be something stupid that he'd do because he is on a molten hot seat there.
See, we're forgetting the team that traditionally always reaches in the first. Seattle. They've done it for Donkey. No, to set off a donkey.
I was going to say the Giants. I just don't think the Giants can screw it up at this point. But I mean, hey, never say never.
But I could just see.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? I think they will screw it up because I think they're going to trade back into round 1, and they're going to take Shedeur Sanders in round 1. I think they're going to go after Shedeur or Jackson Dart, and they could easily trade. Remember, they made that trade with Carolina for Brian Burns. That's kind of a hot spot that the Giants could trade up to. And I would laugh if they traded all the way to 8. I have you'd have to include Thibodeau in a trade who they haven't signed him to his 5th-year deal. So I think that's a guy you may want to look at and like, hey, if somebody want Thibodeau, because, there's a good chance that they're going to draft Abdul Carter. So.
All right, I'm going to draw this to a close slowly. So, Dan, you've got a mock draft coming. Tell us where we can find you.
Hey, I'm Dan Talks Football. I have my mock draft coming out in about an hour and a half. After talking to you guys, I got my mock draft pulled up and I want to make multiple changes, but I'll probably just go with it as is. But yeah, I'll be live for the draft. I'm going to be doing day 1. I've done day 1 for a long time. This time I'm going to do day 1 and day 2. If you guys don't follow me on social media, Chris, I don't know you until today, but you're awesome. So follow me on social media. Let me follow you back because before football season starts, I want to get together with you.
Once we get off the air, we'll share contacts a second. If you
do that because I'm here in Vegas. I do a lot of sports betting, and since you do too, we need to talk. So
sure, absolutely.
And Chris, Pride of Detroit,
sure,
got a lot coming.
Yeah, Pride of Detroit. PrideOfDetroit.com, the Pride of Detroit PODcast. We'll have the stream on Thursday at Chris Perfett on X, more active now on Blue Sky at Perfett. Also, weekends with Fox Sports Radio out of Los Angeles, including, I believe it's, I'm trying to think of, Help me on this. UTC is so weird because we have something stupid called daylight savings time here in
Sure,
America.
we do too.
So that'd be 2:30 a.m. Pacific time. I believe I was talking with someone, I believe that's 9:30 a.m. UTC over the summer. I do a World of Soccer hit. So we'll probably talk about Liverpool at some point. I'm definitely on with all of our shows over the weekend, including Countdown with Steve Hartman. I'm doing updates now with them as well. I got to call Rory's victory at the Masters, which was incredibly cool. So literally just all over the board with Fox Sports Radio for our 600 plus affiliates in the United States, and what most people know me for, prideofdetroit.com and the podcasting work there with Jeremy and Ryan.
Chris has talked about soccer there, and he is a Napoli fan, and they have the potential.
Roma.
Oh, Roma fan. Sorry, my bad. But you're supporting. Supporting Napoli in Serie A though for this title.
I am supporting someone other than Inter.
That makes
I am
sense.
supporting someone other than Inter, Milan, and Juventus. I believe Serie A is best when it is varied and different and has the colorful clubs that everyone can rally behind and everyone can understand the story of Napoli.
So it's level on points at the moment between Napoli and Inter Milan with a few games to go. And if they finish level on points, they will have a one-game playoff for the title, which is the coolest thing ever.
I would love that. Are you kidding me?
So
the Super Bowl of Italy.
Whoever has the better goal difference gets home field advantage. It's great.
We could see it in San Siro too? Are you kidding me?
Thank you for listening, everybody. Our draft shows start tomorrow, 2 Eastern time, with the preview before kicking off in real time at 6 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UK time. We have, I believe, 7 or 8 guests on day 1. We've got 9 or 10 guests on day 2, and we have 4 or 5 on day 3. So it's a monumental undertaking for us. We'd be grateful for your support, likes and shares, and all of that good stuff. Thank you to the entire panel and to Ash and Anne for doing this with me. We'll see you tomorrow. But let's go Lions, one pride, and cheers, Dan. Hope Kansas City come up against us in the Super Bowl, guys. Cheers.
Go Loins.
Go
Recording stopped.
Hey guys.